that the land of Palestine is all encompassing of Israel.
First
So when you talk about occupation,
it was
and Hamas, and Hamas is talking about what happened during the second.
Protests,
and it doesn't matter. They go in and they murder people. So you're talking about going in and murdering people. That's what it's actually talking about. That is the answer. No. It's not contextualizing. It's what legitimately happened as part of history. They went in and they murdered people. That's a fact. They went in and they murdered people. That's a fact.
And so Israel has globalize the Intifada.
All right, we're moving off the topic.
You can take your Intifada and you can go to Palestine and go kill your own people.
The value of life is on the balance. Whether it's here in America, Middle East, Israel, or in Afghanistan, we have to go back to the basics and realize what is the value of life. Life is not dispensable. Every human being was created in the image of God and has tremendous value, meaning, and purpose to stay alive. What we're facing with right now is the war against life, the living, and death and barbarism. And this is what we need to sort out right now in our generation.
The people inside of Afghanistan, 100%, are the Taliban. In 2012, when I was over there, it was very rare to see a Taliban flag flying across the villages. In 2016, 17, and 18, when I was over there, they were everywhere. Pierce, my very last operation, driving off of a target back to the base, there's Taliban flags just flying all throughout these villages. They have cemeteries with Taliban flags planted, everything. You had police officers, military, everybody that was like affiliated with the Taliban in one way, shape, or form. We couldn't even get workers to come onto camp with proper vetting because they also had affiliations with ISIS and the Taliban. It's not a joke. This needs to get looked at. And absolutely, the people that served side by side with U.S. veterans over there have every right, in my opinion, and most veterans' opinions, to be in this country because they have done more for this country than most Americans. But to sit here and try to claim that we're going after Muslims or that we're going after anybody else is a lie. Those same Muslims that myself and my brothers invited into this country and signed our name to would stand side by side and vouch for the exact same things that I'm saying. That there is evil in that country and that it is involved within the civilian population, and trying to claim otherwise is a freaking lie. And it's doing absolutely nobody any good. And those types of lies are what gets people killed inside of the United States of America.
Well, it seems like the U.S. made the problem worse because in your own statement, you said when you first started going into there, you didn't see the Taliban flags. And then by the time, decades later, it's worse. And it's the destabilization, the power vacuum.
Let's talk it. No, it's not destabilization in a power vacuum. There's a power vacuum and destabilization that existed before we went there. That's just a fact. All right. The Taliban ran the country. We ended up putting in a government. And the United States government has absolutely zero business, as far as I'm concerned, or most veterans are concerned, going in and trying to conduct a regime change in any type of country. We suck when it comes to nation building. Our record's horrible. Even if we look at Iraq and we talk about what's going on over inside of Iraq and them trying to pass laws for 9-year-old girls to be able to get married to grown men. All right. That's not exactly what I would call a huge victory for democracy. All right. But over inside of Afghanistan, the moment we pull out, we have 6-year-old girls getting married off to grown men. 10% of the girls inside of Afghanistan under the age of 15 end up getting married off. And I think it's an absurd number. It's like 60% or something like that end up getting married off before they're even 18. And this is their family selling them off to older grown men. And don't even get me started on chai boys.
No, I think one thing that, people haven't focused on enough is the fact that the violence begets violence, that the violence that the U.S. Imperialists, take on abroad will come back to the U.S., whether it's through immigrants or people, whose families go back generations in the U.S. Look at the attempted, Trump, the person who attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. Look at the person who assassinated Charlie Kirk. These aren't migrants. These are people, who've lived here. So the U.S. continuously being involved in violence abroad has only made this situation worse. And there isn't these types of mass shootings happening all around the world. This is something that we see exclusively happening in the U.S. And instead of that being addressed, mental health being addressed, pulling out of wars across the world, we have ICE raids that are basically just a show of force, wreaking havoc on cities like New York City. An ICE raid was thwarted here just a couple of days ago from protesters. And then Palestinian activists like Mohsen Mahdawi, like Mahmoud Khalil, being targeted. So at the end of the day, this isn't about
Nadine,
vetting.
do you think that undocumented immigrants in America who commit crimes unconnected to their immigrant status should be deported?
I mean, that's not what's been happening, though. They've been going after
No,
people.
I know.
people.
I have the same concerns about those who have not committed other crimes. But do you think specifically that if they're undocumented and they commit another crime, they should be deported?
I think at the end of the day, these things should, play out in a court of law.
It's either yes or no, isn't it? I mean, I just think there is universal agreement pretty much. Not
sure,
universal.
but people are being accused of crimes that they didn't commit.
But if they're convicted of a crime,
accused of a thought crime.
If they're convicted of a crime,
if they're convicted of a crime, he was accused of a thought crime. So I'm not going to say that somebody
if they're convicted of a crime
should be deported.
Right. Okay, but that's the problem.
First of all, if you're in the United States on a visa screaming globalize the Intifada, your ass needs deported, period, end of discussion.
Exactly.
Would you like to explain what the first and second Intifadas are? Would you like to
explain? Because they want to say globalize the Intifada is a crime, and that's a deportable
explain what the
offense.
First and second Intifada
This is why your question is a straw man.
Explain what the first and second Intifada were. Go ahead, explain the first and second Intifada, and then we'll discuss why they shouldn't live here in the United States.
I
don't care what it means. Explain what it actually means. Explain what it actually means. Explain what it actually means. Okay, you want to avoid the question, I'll say it for you. It's twice when Palestinians decided that they would go into Israel.
Intifada
and I speak Russian. What's your point?
Shaking off of
okay, and I don't care what it means. It's also what it means in context, right? So when a Palestinian calls and claims globalize the Intifada, they don't mean globalize the resistance. They mean go after the oppressors and start killing people. Palestinians also believe that the land of Palestine is all encompassing of Israel. So when you talk about occupation,
it was
and Hamas is talking about what happened during the second. And it doesn't matter. They go in and they murder people. So you're talking about going in and murdering people. That's what it's actually talking about. That is the answer. No. It's not contextualizing. It's what legitimately happened as part of history. They went in and they murdered people. That's a fact. They went in and they murdered people. That's a fact.
And so Israel has murdered way more Palestinians.
All right, we're moving off the topic.
You can take your Intifada and you can go to Palestine and you can go kill your own people.
Mr. Pierce Morgan, this was an amazing panel and a wonderful discussion between the various views. But all in all, what it comes down to is questioning the value of life. And why is it that in the Judeo-Christian understanding and theology, we value the living and the life? Yet, when we're dealing with what we have dealt with the last 7-8 decades with radical Islamists, with the Taliban, with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda, with Hamas, with the Houthis, with the Hezbollahs, and Iran, just go down the list. We're dealing with a force that does not value life as we value it. What we must appreciate and understand, that the day you and I were born, God said the world can no longer exist without you, which means people are not created by fluke, by chance, by accident, but everything is with absolute, unequivocal, divine providence. Everything happens for a purpose and a reason. There's a God in heaven that orchestrates our life from birth to death. We cannot be alive without the soul that's within us, that we get at birth. That's when God's soul is in us. Until then, we share the soul of the mother. But as soon as we're born, we get our own soul and we get to live independently up until our last breath. And our last breath is when our soul leaves our body. But that soul, where did it come from? It's from God. It's literally a part of God that is blown into us. Just like we go back in Genesis by Adam and Eve, when Adam was created and then Eve. How did Adam come to life? God blew into his nostrils a breath of life. That breath is the soul. Just like when you and I inhale and exhale, we inhale deeply and we exhale. It comes from the deepest part of our lungs. And this is when God blew into Adam a soul. He blew in a soul of life. We need to look at every human being, regardless of race, color, or religion, that they are a carved out human being by God. They were created by God. They too, as an infant, coming out into this world, came naked and pure without any sin. They represented the miracle of life. And then where life took them, or where they chose to go, is what they turned out to be. When listening to the various opinions, and they're talking about how come there's so many mass shootings here in America, and how come they are Americans, well, that comment struck a chord very close and personal to me, myself, as I survived a mass shooting not too long ago, 2019, the last day of Passover, April 27, 2019. I was in the synagogue that my wife and I built. I was in the lobby when a young white American boy, 19 years old, white supremacist, anti-Semite, blatant anti-Semite, breaches our lobby with the AR-15, shoots and kills Lori Lynn Gilbert Kay as I was talking with her. She falls to her death. Children are playing behind me. I hear them playing. The rifle is lifted and he's about to assassinate me and kill me. When I heard the children, my natural instinct and reflex, I turned around and ran towards the children to bring them to safety, which I did. But as I was running, he shot 4 bullets at me. These 2 fingers were shot by those bullets, but the rest of me survived. I got the children to safety. When I returned back, I learned that some brave men of the congregation chased him out. He fled and eventually 2 miles later surrendered, calling up and saying, I just killed Jews at a synagogue. He thought he killed me. He did not know that I survived to be here today to talk to you. That near-death experience, that mass murder that our congregation survived, has changed all of our lives forever, including my own life. The personal suffering physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the PTSD doesn't go away, it lives with you all the time. But it certainly did not define me, but rather it refined me. What doesn't break you makes you. And I learned from that experience that evil can be anywhere you let it in. Whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's in Iran, whether it's in Somalia, wherever, Libya, just go through whichever terror dictatorship country where death is so rampant. Where you let evil in, it could be. Yes, even here in the United States of America, when we think about the shootings that occurred just the other week in Washington, D.C., the 2 National Guardsmen who were shot, one unfortunately died, the other one is still fighting for his life. And that was done by an Afghan immigrant. So obviously, we don't condemn a whole nation based on the actions of a few. But we are responsible for the end results of the environment that we promote or do not allow in. And we have that problem in America. It's indeed a problem. The amount of mass shootings that have occurred, starting with Columbine, with the school mass shooting, and then you just think about all the shootings that has happened since then. How does that end up in the streets of America, the land of the free? We always saw that happening all over the world. We didn't see it happening in America, in the streets of America, and our own turning the guns on us. The foreigners, the refugees who choose to find a way into our country and then harm us, that is a evil force that we have to deal with. But the question's brought up, why here in the United States of America are we dealing with such mass shootings and such carnage and death, which a couple of decades ago was unthought about, unheard of? Perhaps it may be parallel when they decided to take the 10 Commandments out of the schools. I was just listening the other day to a discussion how they are allowing in Texas, in Frisco, Texas, prayer rooms for Muslims to pray, but they took out the 10 Commandments. and they're dealing with the threat of Sharia law and whatnot. So I think once America decided to go godless, and they started to take down those 10 commandments, and they worried about mixing church and state, they didn't realize that the state could only exist if it leans on the church. The combination in God we trust, that's a synchronization. We both depend on each other. We need God in our life to exist, to succeed, and to sustain ourselves. And when we went down that dark road of having a godless country, godless public schools, godless government buildings, taking down the 10 commandments, there's a price to pay for that. There's a void that all of a sudden became in America. The void of living in a godless country is when wherever there's a void means you're making room for other forces to occupy. And perhaps this is what we're having to deal with in our generation. And perhaps it's time to reconsider and go back to our basics. Our founding fathers, our pilgrims, our founding fathers in the United States of America founded the Constitution and America to be built on the precepts, on the codes, the morals and ethics as brought in the Old Testament, in the Torah. In God we trust. There's a difference between just believing in God and trusting in God. Trusting in God is depending on God to be there for us. So let us reconsider and reintroduce God into your home. Bring God back into our schools. Bring God into our government buildings. Bring God back into your day-to-day life. Let God be part of your vernacular. Let God be part of the conversation. And people ask you how you're doing, just say the words, thank God, I'm doing good. People ask you where you're going, say, please God, I'm going to work today. You include God in the conversation. And then you are opening up channels of blessing for you from God, so that God will bless you, God will guide you, and God will protect you forever. God bless you. God loves you.